Amina thought she had the perfect husband until Mi Juma planted a seed of doubt in her mind.
I need you to understand the importance of this decision.
I know, I understand.
She decided to trail Chica, thinking she would catch him cheating, but what she discovered will shake you to the core. My people, don't miss a second, because this secret is darker than anyone expected. Stay with me till the end, because what she uncovered that night will leave you speechless. Watch what Amina did after Mi Juma planted that seed of doubt in her mind.
What is Chica hiding from that I don't know? I need to know.
That night, as Amina lay on her bed, she could not sleep well. Mi Juma's words replayed in her mind like a stubborn echo. For the first time, she began to question Chica's movements. She remembered how Chica always claimed he traveled to Nigeria. Yet, he never allowed her or the children to follow him. Was it really business, or was there something he was hiding? Amina turned and looked at her husband as he slept peacefully. His face looked calm, but now she wondered who he truly was. Was he the man she thought she married, or something else? The next morning, she prepared breakfast for the family as usual, but even as Chica smiled at her, doubt clouded her heart. She no longer saw him as the perfect husband she once knew. While Adana and the twins played, Amina's mind wandered. What if Mi Juma was right? What if I followed him secretly? Her heart beat fast just at the thought of such an action. But another voice in her heart whispered, don't. He might find out. If Chica was hiding something, exposing it might put her in danger. Amina wrestled within herself, torn between love and curiosity. That evening, Chica announced casually that he might travel soon. He said it with the same tone he always used before leaving. But this time, Amina listened with different ears. Suspicion filled her soul. She smiled outwardly and pretended to support his journey. But secretly, her mind had already made a decision. This time, if he traveled, she would find a way to follow him. 2 days later, Chica told Amina, my dear, I'll be traveling to Nigeria tomorrow. It won't be long, just 2 weeks. He kissed her forehead gently, the way he always did, and Amina forced a smile. But this time, her heart was heavy with suspicion. The following morning, Amina dressed up as though she was only escorting him. Adana and Baraka waved goodbye to their father as he packed his last bag. To Chica, everything looked normal, but inside Amina's chest, fear and courage battled. At the airport, she stood at the usual spot where families and friends waited. She waved as Chica smiled back, thinking she would return home afterward. But unknown to him, Amina's heart had made a bold decision. Instead of leaving, she clutched her handbag tighter and watched closely. Her eyes followed every step Chica took through the long departure queue. She knew what she was about to do could change everything. As the security officers scanned passengers, Amina moved carefully. She blended with a group of people heading toward the boarding gate. Her mind screamed, turn back, Amina, but her feet refused to obey. For the first time in her life, Amina bypassed the checkpoint without returning home. Her steps were light, but her heartbeat thundered like a drum inside her chest. She was no longer just a wife. She was now a shadow following her husband. Chica, completely unaware, strolled confidently to his flight. He had no idea that the woman he loved was watching closely from behind. To him, his secrets were safe, but not anymore. Every movement Amina made was cautious. She avoided eye contact with security and moved as if she belonged there. The fear of being caught almost swallowed her courage, yet she pressed on. For a brief moment, she doubted herself. What if he catches me? What if he truly isn't what Mi Juma said he was? But her motherly instinct to protect her daughter Adana gave her strength. As Chica reached the waiting lounge for passengers, Amina hid behind a pillar. Her hands trembled, her breath shallow, but her eyes never left him. She was about to uncover the truth, whether it destroyed her or not. Amina's eyes widened in shock as the boarding gate closed and the plane began to move. She searched desperately for Chica among the passengers, but his seat was empty. Her heart sank. Her husband had never entered the plane. Confusion and disappointment tore through her chest. Why would he lie to me again? She whispered under her breath, tears stinging her eyes. But instead of giving up, she decided to keep following him. From the airport, Amina trailed Chica at a safe distance. He walked calmly as though nothing unusual had happened, but he never looked back. Each step he took seemed to drag Amina deeper into mystery. Hours later, Amina's jaw dropped when she realized where he was heading. It wasn't to any office, nor to the house of a friend. Instead, his footsteps led directly toward the city's old cemetery. The cemetery was quiet, with the evening breeze whistling through the tall grass. Crows circled above the crooked tombstones, their cries echoing eerily. Amina's stomach churned. Her husband was walking into the land of the dead. Chica moved with strange confidence, as though he belonged there. He greeted no one, yet his face bore a calm smile. To Amina, it felt as though the cemetery recognized him. Her legs trembled, but she refused to turn back. She hid behind a large broken tombstone, her eyes locked on her husband. "What is he doing here?" she whispered, her breath shaky. Then, before her very eyes, Chica stopped at a particular grave. He placed his hands gently on the cold tombstone, closed his eyes, and began to murmur. The ground beneath him seemed to shiver. Amina's heart pounded louder than the night's silence. Her entire body screamed at her to run, but her spirit demanded the truth. The man she loved, the father of her daughter, was he truly living or dead? As she leaned closer, the impossible happened. Shadows began to rise around Chica. One by one, ghostly figures appeared, greeting him like an old friend. Amina gasped, her hand covering her mouth, realizing her worst fear had come true. As Amina's trembling eyes scanned the cemetery, her heart almost burst from shock. The faces she saw gathering around Chica were the same ones she had welcomed into her home many times. They were his so-called friends, laughing and drinking in their mansion, yet here they were, appearing like shadows in the dead of night. Amina's breath grew shallow. Her mind raced to explain the unexplainable, but she clung to the only thing she could understand. "So, my husband is a ritualist," she muttered under her breath, her knees almost giving way. She had heard whispers in the market of men who went to graveyards at night, calling upon spirits to make them wealthy. Those stories always chilled her to the bone, but never in her wildest dreams did she think her husband could be one of them. Her heart broke as she remembered the endless money he provided without working. The thought of him being a ghost never crossed her mind. To her, ritualists were real, and her husband now seemed to be one. She covered her mouth with both hands, tears filling her eyes. All this while she had lived in luxury, driving the latest cars, eating the best meals, and raising her children in comfort. Now she thought it was all blood money, paid for with sacrifices at the cemetery. Her mind flashed back to the strange happenings in their house. Footsteps at night, shadows in the corners, whispers in the silence. She had dismissed them as hallucinations before. Now every sign seemed to confirm her new fear. Her husband was into dark rituals. Chica stood in the middle of the graveyard, surrounded by his friends. They clasped his shoulders, whispering things only the dead could understand, their ghostly forms shimmering faintly in the moonlight. But to Amina's frightened eyes, they looked like fellow ritualists in a secret cult. Her chest tightened as she thought of her children, especially little Chindinma. "What kind of father are you?" she whispered, her voice cracking. "Have you sold your soul just to give us wealth?" The urge to run battled with the urge to confront him. Her love for him fought against the terror clawing at her mind. All she could think was she had married a man who belonged more to the grave than the living. For the first time since their marriage, Amina felt unsafe beside Chica. She wiped her tears quickly, realizing she had to decide. Would she keep silent and pretend nothing happened, or confront him and risk losing everything? Amina clutched her chest as the pieces came together in her mind. "Oh, now I understand," she whispered to herself, trembling. "My husband is a ritualist. No wonder he never works." Her voice shook with fear and bitterness. "All those bundles of money he gives me, all the school fees, all the cars, it is not from hard work." Her eyes darted around the graveyard, staring at the eerie figures around him. She swallowed hard and continued in a broken tone. "So these his friends, They are the spirits he conjures to bring him money. Tears rolled down her face as she pressed her palm against her lips to stop herself from crying out. Every strange happening in their mansion now made sense in her troubled mind. The shadows, the whispers, the footsteps, the sudden flow of money. It all seemed to connect back to this very moment in the cemetery. Amina wanted to scream, but fear glued her lips shut. She had once been proud of being the wife of one of the richest men in Tanzania. Now she felt as though her life had been built on blood and spirits. Her thoughts raced back to when she asked about his work, and he would laugh and brush it off. Chica. So this is why you never wanted me to know where you work, she whispered bitterly. You are not working. You are calling spirits to labor for you. The sight before her grew more terrifying as Chica and his friends formed a circle around an old tombstone. Their voices rose in strange chants that made Amina's skin crawl. She gripped a nearby tree, her legs too weak to hold her upright. The moon cast an eerie glow over the scene, making the spirits appear even more frightening. But Amina still could not comprehend that they were ghosts. To her, this was a ritualist gathering, a dark secret she had now stumbled upon. Her heart pounded wildly as she thought about her children at home. What kind of life have I brought Chindima and the twins into, she murmured. If this man is using blood rituals for wealth, then my children are not safe. At that moment, Amina felt torn between running back home and rushing into the circle to confront her husband. But deep inside, one thing became clear. Her marriage was no longer a blessing. It had become a terrifying mystery she could no longer ignore. Amina staggered back home with tears streaming down her face, her whole body shaking. She collapsed onto the couch, covering her face with both hands. Mi Juma was right. Oh, he was right about my husband, she sobbed. Her heart bled with fear and disappointment. The man she loved, the father of her children, the one who promised her safety, was not who she thought he was. She could no longer deny what she had seen with her own eyes. She lay awake all night, her mind replaying the haunting images of Chica and his strange friends at the cemetery. The whispers, the circle, the chants, they echoed in her head like a nightmare that refused to end. Sleep abandoned her completely. By dawn, she had made up her mind. She would not remain silent or allow fear to eat her alive. She needed to talk to someone who understood what she had witnessed. Her thoughts turned to Mi Juma, the man with spiritual eyes. He had warned her playfully, but deep down he knew the truth about her husband. Now, she was desperate to find him and confess everything. She could hardly wait for morning. As soon as the sun began to rise, she dressed Chindima for school with shaky hands. But this time, she wasn't going just to drop her daughter off. She had another mission. Her eyes kept darting towards the school gate, her heart racing with every second. She waited eagerly, scanning the faces of parents as they arrived one by one. Then she saw him, Mi Juma, walking with his son Baraka. Amina's chest tightened with relief and fear at the same time. She quickly led Chindima towards him. Her steps hurried, as though she had been waiting for years. She didn't even let him settle before speaking. Please, Mi Juma, she said in a trembling voice, give me your phone number. I need to talk to you. Your assumption about my husband, it's true. Her words poured out like a flood she could no longer hold back. Mi Juma froze, his face growing pale as he listened. He had suspected, but hearing Amina confirm it shook him deeply. Now, both of them knew the truth could no longer stay hidden. Mi Juma placed a gentle hand on Amina's shoulder to calm her trembling. My daughter, calm yourself, he said softly. Let us go to your car and talk, away from these eyes and ears. They walked quietly to the parking lot, Amina gripping her keys tightly. Her heart was still pounding, but she felt a small comfort knowing she was no longer alone. Inside the car, she locked the doors before speaking. Tears welled up in her eyes as she turned to him. Mi Juma, your assumption about my husband is right, she whispered. Her voice cracked under the weight of the words. She buried her face in her palms, her body shaking. My husband, Chica, he is a ritualist. Her words were heavy, each one dripping with fear. Mi Juma's eyes widened in shock. Ritualist, he echoed, almost in disbelief. Then he shook his head quickly, saying, oh no, my daughter. Amina lifted her head, her face stained with tears. Yes, I followed him to the airport, but he never entered the plane. Instead, I saw him go straight to the cemetery with those strange friends of his. She shuddered at the memory, her voice trembling. They formed a circle, chanting strange things, and I realized that is how he gets his money. He has been using spirits to bring wealth into our home. Mi Juma leaned back in the car seat, his heart heavy. He had known Chica was not ordinary, but hearing Amina call him a ritualist cut deeply. He knew the truth was even darker than what she imagined. My daughter, he said slowly, his voice deep with concern. What you saw is real, but you do not yet understand what it means. His eyes grew moist as he thought about the dangers surrounding her family. He clasped her trembling hands firmly. Listen to me carefully, Amina. Chica is not a ritualist. His voice dropped to a whisper. What you married is something far more terrifying. Amina said, what do you mean my husband is something far more terrifying than a ritualist? Her voice cracked with fear as tears filled her eyes. What should I do, Mi Juma? She asked desperately. Mi Juma went silent, his lips pressed tightly together. He looked away for a long moment, his eyes heavy with secrets too dark to rush. Instead of answering immediately, he paused, letting the weight of her question hang in the air. Mi Juma said softly, go back home and pretend as if nothing happened. Welcome him, be sweet, and don't make him suspicious. But whenever he tells you he wants to travel again, call me immediately. Do not follow him this time. I will bring a special powder. Rub it on your face when I say, and you will see Chica's true form and know who he really is. Amina looked at Mi Juma with trembling hands, her heart pounding in her chest. The thought of going back home to live under the same roof with Chica, pretending as if nothing had happened, sent cold shivers down her spine. But she knew Mi Juma was right. If she panicked or showed fear, Chica might suspect her and whatever secret he was hiding would remain buried. She wiped her tears and nodded slowly. Mi Juma, I will do as you say, she whispered. Her voice was weak, but deep inside her, courage was building. She could not continue to live in blindness. She needed to know the truth about her husband, no matter how terrifying it might be. Mi Juma leaned closer, lowering his voice as if the trees and the wind themselves were listening. This powder was given to me by my late grandfather, he said. It is not ordinary. It reveals what is hidden in the spirit realm. But be warned, Amina, once you see the truth, there is no going back. Amina swallowed hard. She clenched her fists, her knuckles turning white. I want to see, she said, her eyes burning with determination. I cannot live with lies. If he is human, then let me know. If he is a monster, then I must face it. Mi Juma studied her face for a moment, then sighed deeply. You are stronger than you know, Amina. But you must not act alone. Wait for me, call me, and no matter what you see, do not scream, do not run. Ghosts and spirits feed on fear. The weight of his words sank into her heart like a stone into a river. She knew it would not be easy, but for her child and her sanity, she had no choice. She thanked Mi Juma quietly and got into her car. As she drove home, her hand shook on the steering wheel, her mind replaying every moment she had lived with Chica, every smile, every silence, every unexplained journey. By the time she pulled into the compound, Amina had composed herself. She wiped her face clean of tears, forced a gentle smile, and stepped into the house as though nothing had happened. 2 weeks later, Chica came back from his traveling, while Amina went out to get some things for her children when she entered. The faint scent of incense floated in the air, and from the parlor she heard Chica's laughter echoing, low, strange, and chilling. When Chica saw Amina that night, he was surprised by the warmth in her eyes. She wrapped her arms around him and welcomed him with a sweetness he had not felt in a long time. Her touch was soft, her laughter light, as though all was well in their marriage. Later that night, when they lay together, Amina gave herself to him like never before. She kissed him deeply, held him tighter, and their bodies moved with a passion that stunned Chica. He pulled back slightly, staring into her eyes. Amina, he said, breathing heavily. You have never made love with me like this. What has come over you? Amina smiled, though her heart thudded with a hidden fear. She stroked his cheek gently and whispered, "Honey, I just missed you so much. You know, sometimes I forget how much I need you." Her words were sweet, but in her mind, she remembered Mi Juma's warning. Pretend, act normal, do not let him suspect. Chica's lips curved into a satisfied grin. He pulled her closer, his suspicion fading away under the weight of her tenderness. For that night, he believed her completely. He thought his wife was finally giving him the love he always desired, and for the first time in a long while, he slept peacefully, holding her in his arms. But Amina did not sleep. She lay awake, staring into the darkness, listening to the sound of his breath. She wondered what form lay hidden behind his face, what truth the powder would one day reveal. Though she held him, she felt as though she was lying next to a stranger or something worse. The following morning, the sun streamed gently into their bedroom. Chica stretched lazily, humming to himself, clearly in high spirits. He kissed Amina on the forehead before stepping into the bathroom. Amina watched him go, her heart heavy with questions. At breakfast, Chica looked unusually cheerful. He sat down with his plate, glanced at Amina, and said, "My love, you really surprised me last night. I feel so alive again." Amina forced a smile, pretending to be equally delighted. Then, as he sipped his tea, he casually added, "I may need to travel again in a few days. Some important matters I must handle." His tone was calm, but those words struck Amina like a hammer. Her heart skipped, but she remembered Mi Juma's instructions, do not act suspicious. Pretend as if nothing happened. So she smiled sweetly and replied, "All right, my dear. Just let me know when, and I'll prepare your things." Inside, however, Amina was trembling. She knew this was the chance Mi Juma had spoken of. She needed to see Chica's true form, to know what she was living with. That evening, as soon as she dropped Chindima at school, she planned to meet Mi Juma and collect the mysterious powder. Amina parked her car at the far end of the compound and walked toward the gate. Her eyes scanned the crowd of parents, searching for Mi Juma. She spotted him leaning on his old bicycle, waiting as if he knew she would come. When their eyes met, Amina quickly walked up to him. Her heart was pounding, her palms sweating. "Mi Juma," she whispered. "He said he will travel again in a few days. I need the powder you promised." Mi Juma's face grew stern. He glanced around to be sure no one was watching. Then he reached into his small leather pouch hanging by his side and pulled out a tiny clay container sealed with a strip of red cloth. He pressed it gently into Amina's hand. "This is no ordinary powder," he said quietly. "When you rub it on your face and look at him directly, you will see what others cannot. You will see his true form." Amina swallowed hard, fear gripping her chest. "And what if I see something too terrifying?" she asked. Mi Juma looked deep into her eyes. "Courage, my daughter. What you don't know can kill you faster than what you know. Prepare yourself, for truth has a way of breaking the heart, but also setting it free." Amina nodded slowly, her fingers clutching the clay container as if it were her lifeline. She felt as though the weight of her entire future rested in that little pouch. Amina returned home with her heart heavy, but her face brightened with the smile of a devoted wife. She cooked for Chica, laughed at his jokes, and when night fell, she wrapped herself around him with unusual passion. As they lay together, she whispered, "I'm going to miss you, my love. But this time, I won't follow you to the airport. I want to stay home, rest, and take care of the children." Chica turned to her with a look of surprise, then relief. "My dear Amina," he said softly, "I've been wanting to tell you not to bother seeing me off, but I feared you might feel bad or begin to suspect me. But if you truly wish to rest, then so be it." Amina smiled and kissed his forehead. "I trust you, Chica. You can never cheat on me." Her words flowed like honey, but deep within her heart, she clenched the small clay container Mi Juma had given her. For while her lips spoke of love, her mind was already plotting. She had no intention of letting him leave without knowing the truth. The morning came bright and calm. Chica dressed in his usual travel clothes, a fine suit with polished shoes, and carried his small black suitcase. He looked every inch the wealthy man he had always appeared to be. Amina served him breakfast with a gentle smile, her eyes never leaving his face. "Travel safe, my love," she said sweetly, handing him his tea. Inside her mind, however, she whispered, "Today I will know who you truly are." Chica kissed her lightly on the forehead and hugged his children before stepping into the waiting car. "Don't stress yourself, Amina. I'll be back before you know it," he reassured her. Amina waved from the doorway, her expression calm and trusting. But the moment Chica's car disappeared from sight, she rushed back inside, took the small clay container of powder from its hiding place, and slipped it into her bag. Instead of resting at home as she had promised, Amina dressed quickly, tied a scarf over her head, and quietly left through the back gate. She hailed a taxi and instructed the driver to follow Chica's route to the airport, but not too closely. Her heart pounded as the car moved. Every beat was a mixture of fear and determination. She kept hearing Mi Juma's words echo in her mind. "Rub the powder on your face, and you will see his true form." When they arrived near the airport, Amina ducked low in the car, watching carefully. She saw Chica step out of his vehicle and stroll toward the terminal like every other traveler. She clenched her fists. "Now, let me see what my husband is hiding." Amina's eyes never left him. She watched carefully from a distance as passengers lined up to check in. Chica joined the queue, but strangely, he never handed over a ticket. He only stood there, glancing around as if waiting for something. Minutes later, as the crowd moved forward, Amina noticed something unusual. Chica quietly stepped aside, pretending to answer a call. Then, without anyone noticing, he slowly walked away from the terminal toward the back exit. Amina's heart skipped a beat. "He didn't enter the plane, just like the last time," she whispered, her voice trembling with shock and anger. She quickly signaled her driver to follow at a safe distance. Chica entered a smaller road that led away from the airport. His pace was steady, like a man going to a familiar place. Amina's suspicion deepened as she gripped the powder tightly in her hand. Soon, they arrived at the cemetery gates, the same place Mi Juma had warned her about. Chica walked inside confidently, as though the graveyard was his second home. Amina's breath caught in her throat. Her mind raced. So it's true. He doesn't travel anywhere. He always comes here. But still, she thought, could it be rituals? Could it be spirits bringing him money? Or something worse? Summoning her courage, she quietly slipped through the cemetery gate and trailed him from a distance. The moonlight cast eerie shadows on the tombstones, making her shiver, yet she pressed on. Then she saw them. The familiar faces, those friends who often visited their mansion. They stood in a circle, their eyes glowing faintly in the dark. Amina gasped softly. So they're all here. At first, she still believed what her mind could explain. My husband is a ritualist. These must be his fellow cult members. That's why money never runs out in our house, she murmured. Her legs trembled, but she moved closer, determined to uncover the full truth. She slowly reached into her bag, ready to rub the mysterious powder on her face, just as Mi Juma had instructed. Amina's hands shook as she dipped her fingers into the powder. She whispered a short prayer under her breath, then gently rubbed it across her face. At first, nothing changed. Only the cold night air brushed her cheeks. But then, in a sudden shimmer, the scene before her shifted. Her eyes widened as the circle of men transformed. The friends she had always welcomed into her home no longer looked human. Their skin was pale, their eyes hollow, and their bodies glowed faintly like smoke drifting in the wind. Her heart raced as her gaze landed on Chica. The handsome, strong man she once loved now appeared terrifying. His flesh was gone, his body skeletal, draped in the faint outline of the grave clothes he was buried in. Amina staggered backward, almost screaming, but she quickly covered her mouth. Oh God, my husband is not a ritualist. He's a ghost, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. The ghosts began to chant in unison, their voices echoing like thunder through the graveyard. Strange flames flickered around them, but no fire burned the ground. It was a gathering of the dead. Chica raised his bony hand and said in a hollow voice, Brothers, tonight we strengthen our bond. No one must ever discover who we are, or the living will reject us. Amina's knees weakened. So this is the secret he has been hiding from me all these years, she thought. Her heart broke, not only from fear, but from the pain of knowing she had been sharing her life, her body, and her children with a man who no longer belonged to the living. She leaned against a tombstone, her mind torn between running away and staying to learn more. Her whole body trembled as she tried to steady her breathing. The ghosts began to dance around the graves, their eerie laughter filling the air. Some of them disappeared into the ground only to rise again like mist. It was a sight beyond human imagination. Then suddenly, Chica stopped, turned his head slightly, and sniffed the air as if sensing another presence. Amina froze in terror. Did he notice me? She thought, holding her breath. Amina's hands trembled as she slowly brought out her phone. She pressed the record button, pointing the camera at the terrifying dance of the ghosts. Her heart pounded, but she thought, if no one believes me, at least I'll have proof. For several minutes, she captured their eerie movements, the hollow voices, the glowing bodies, and the chilling way they rose from the ground. Her fear was heavy, but the courage of a desperate woman drove her on. When she felt she had recorded enough, she lowered the phone and peeked at the screen. Her eyes widened in shock. The video was completely blank, just blackness, as though nothing had ever been there. Frantically, she replayed it again and again. But each time the same thing appeared. Only darkness, no sound, no image. Her chest tightened with panic. Why? Why can't it record them? Her fingers shook as she whispered, "So the world of the living cannot capture the world of the dead." Tears welled in her eyes as she realized how powerless she was against what she had just witnessed. Before she could hide the phone, a sudden gust of cold wind swept past her, almost knocking it out of her hand. It was as though the spirits themselves were warning her that they knew she was there. Amina gasped and quickly slipped the phone back into her bag, her heart beating so fast she thought it might burst. Her mind screamed at her to run, but her legs refused to move. Chica lifted his head once again, his hollow eyes glowing faintly as he turned in her direction. "Someone is here," he muttered, his ghostly voice echoing through the cemetery. The other ghosts stopped dancing. They turned their heads in unison, sniffing the air, scanning the shadows. Amina pressed herself hard against the tombstone, clutching her bag to her chest, praying silently that they would not find her. Except for a moment, the graveyard fell silent, no sound of wind, no sound of crickets, just the eerie stillness of the dead searching for the living among them. Amina's palms were sweaty as she slowly pulled out her phone again, her body shaking with fear. If he's truly a ghost, if all this is real, then his phone should still ring, she whispered to herself. With trembling fingers, she dialed Chica's number. The graveyard grew even colder as the call connected. From the middle of the ghostly circle, a loud ringing tone echoed. It was his phone. Amina's heart nearly stopped. "So it's true, my husband is not among the living." She covered her mouth, her tears flowing as the sight confirmed everything Mi Juma had warned her about. Chica looked at the glowing device in his skeletal hand and let out a hollow laugh. "Ah, my wife is calling me," he told his fellow ghostly companions. His voice was calm, almost proud, as if having a human wife was a privilege in their world. The other ghosts chuckled eerily, their voices like dry leaves rustling in the wind. "She must love you greatly to call you at this hour," one of them said. Amina felt her throat tighten. The man she shared her bed with, the father of her children, was openly speaking to the dead as though it were normal. Her stomach churned with both fear and disbelief. Quickly, before he could answer, she pressed the red button and ended the call. Her breathing was heavy as she muttered, "Oh Lord, it's true, it's all true." She slid down behind the tombstone, clutching her chest, her mind racing. The evidence was no longer in doubt. She had seen him, heard him, and now even his phone betrayed him. The ghosts returned to their strange chants, unaware that Amina had just confirmed her worst fears. But deep within her, a new fire of determination began to burn. She could not live with this secret forever. Her next thought was clear. I must tell Mi Juma everything I've seen with my own eyes. He is the only one who can guide me through this horror. Amina rushed into her car, her hands trembling as she dialed Mi Juma's number. When he picked up, her voice cracked. "Mi Juma, everything you said is true. I saw them with my own eyes. My husband is not a man. He is a ghost." On the other end of the line, Mi Juma sighed deeply. My daughter, I knew your husband was a ghost, but I did not know how to tell you directly. That is why I wanted you to see it yourself. Amina's tears rolled down as she gripped the steering wheel. But tell me, Mi Juma, if you had told me earlier that my husband was a ghost, do you think I would have believed you? Mi Juma was silent for a moment before replying. No, you would never have believed me. You would have defended him and turned against me. That is why the truth had to come from your own eyes. The following morning, Amina drove secretly to meet Mi Juma in person. When their eyes met, she broke down again. I saw him with my own eyes, Mi Juma. My husband is truly among the dead. Mi Juma held her by the shoulder and said gently, now you know the truth, my daughter. The question is no longer if your husband is a ghost, but what you are going to do with that truth. Amina wiped her tears with the edge of her veil and asked in a trembling voice, Mi Juma, what should I do now? How can I live with a man who is not living? Mi Juma paused, staring into the distance, his mind heavy with thought. The weight of her question pressed upon him, for the path ahead was dangerous. He finally said, listen carefully, Amina. Do not rush. You must go back home and act as though nothing happened. Welcome him warmly, love him, and do not make him suspicious. Amina's mind was still heavy with the weight of her secret conversation with Mi Juma. She was torn between pretending and confronting Chica. But before she could make any decision, something else came crashing into her life. Late that evening, screams echoed from the street. Amina rushed outside only to see strangers in masks storming through the neighborhood. In the chaos, she realized her twins, Chindima and Chinidu, were missing. Her heart stopped. Chindima, Chinidu, she screamed, running from house to house, but they were nowhere. Neighbors shouted that kidnappers had snatched some children and were heading toward the highway. Amina fell on the ground, wailing in anguish. Her world felt like it had ended. But then, something strange happened. While the kidnappers were dragging the children through the lonely bush path toward the main road, a dark mist suddenly surrounded them. From the mist, Chica appeared, not in his usual gentle form, but as a terrifying spirit with eyes glowing like burning coals. The kidnappers froze, their bodies trembling uncontrollably. You dare steal what belongs to the spirit. Chica's voice thundered, echoing like 1,000 drums. The kidnappers dropped the children instantly, falling to their knees and begging for their lives. Out of fear, they abandoned the children at the highway, running into the night without looking back. The twins sat on the dusty roadside, too terrified to even cry. Minutes later, some motorists passing by saw the children and raised alarm. Neighbors rushed and carried Chindima and Chinidu home safely. Amina was overjoyed but confused when her children whispered, Daddy saved us. Daddy was there. That same night, when the children were finally asleep, Amina slipped into her car and dialed Mi Juma's number. Her voice shook as she narrated everything. The kidnapping, the strange mist, and how Chica appeared to rescue the children. Mi Juma listened in silence, his breath heavy on the phone. When Amina asked, how do I confront my husband now that I know he is a ghost, there was a long pause. Amina's heart pounded as she stared at the shadows around her house. She felt trapped between fear and love. She wanted the truth, but she also dreaded what that truth might cost her. After Amina poured out everything, there was silence on the line. Finally, Mi Juma sighed deeply and said, Amina, I don't know. I have seen many strange things, but your husband, he is something beyond my understanding. His words left Amina trembling with more questions than answers. Amina's chest tightened. If even Mi Juma, a man who could see spirits, was confused, then what hope did she have? Meanwhile, back in Anambra, Nigeria, Chika's sister Ngozi, who once dreamed of her brother saying, I am coming back, was shaken awake in the middle of the night. She had seen her brother again, but this time he was holding 3 children in his arms. Ngozi sat on her bed, confused. Why now? Why is he holding children? Why am I the only one seeing this? She whispered, trembling in the dark. But just as she was battling with her thoughts, something even more shocking happened. That same night, Chika's mother also woke up from the exact same dream. Her dead son standing with 3 children beside him. My people, what do you think this means? Why are they both seeing the same dream at the same time? Could it be a warning or a message from the land of the dead? And should Amina finally confront her husband about being a ghost or keep pretending until the truth comes out? I am waiting for your opinion in the comment section. Don't miss part 3. The biggest revelation is yet to come. Make sure you subscribe and turn on your notification bell so you'll be the first to watch when the shocking truth unfolds.